Hi, boys and girls. How are you this week? I hope you're good. I have had a song stuck in my head all week since Kayla's lesson. You probably know it. It's the one that goes, Joshua in the battle of Jericho, 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 Joshua in the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. It's been stuck in my head all week long. It won't go away. What a fun song to sing though, right? So hopefully you got to watch Kayla's video from last week on Joshua, Jericho, and the Israelites going into the Promised Land. If you haven't seen her video yet or done her lesson, go ahead and go do that, because the story this week is tied very closely to her lesson from last week. So you'll need that for a little bit of background. So today we're going to be talking about a woman named Rahab. And like Ruth, Rahab came from a different culture, different upbringing. She believed in other gods, other things like that. So, but it turns out she heard stories of the Israelites and their God, and she feared for herself and for her family because she heard how great and powerful the Lord was. So we're going to start in Joshua 2 today. Go ahead, run, grab your Bibles real quick if you don't have it. So Joshua sent 2 spies to the city of Jericho, and this was before Jericho fell down. So he sent these 2 spies to see how strong and how fortified, remember that word from last week, the city was. So they could scope out how tough it was going to be to defeat. So Joshua does that. The 2 spies go, and the king of Jericho finds out that the 2 spies were in his city. So he wanted to catch them. But the spies went to the house of a lady named Rahab. And here is what she did for those spies. So when the spies came to her for help, Rahab took them up onto her roof, and she got what they call flax, and she hid them under the flax. When the king's men came to Rahab, they asked her, Rahab, have you seen these 2 men? She says, well, they were here, but they're gone now. Maybe if you run fast, you can catch them. And guess what? The king's men could not find them, nor did they catch the spies. When the spies were ready to go to sleep for the night, Rahab went to the roof and talked to them. She said, I know the Lord has given this land to your people. You frighten us very much. Everyone living in this land is terribly afraid of you. We are afraid because we have heard how the Lord helped you. We heard how he dried up the Red Sea when you came out of Egypt. When we heard this, we became very afraid. Now our men are afraid to fight you. This is because the Lord your God rules the heavens above and the earth below. As you read in Joshua 2, you'll find that Rahab goes on to ask the spies to show kindness to her and her family, and to make a promise to her and to the Lord for her safety. Let's pretend that this is Jericho. It's very colorful, isn't it? Rahab's house was actually part of the outer wall of Jericho, so she had access to the outside. So what she did is, when she got their promise for safety, she lowered them down through her window by a rope, and it was nighttime. The spies promised that they would help her later, since she had helped them. Then Rahab marked her house with a red rope, so that when the Israelites came and conquered Jericho, they would know that her and her family were there in that portion of the city. Now we're going to play a game called Wall of Fears. Ha ha ha. On some sticky notes, write or draw some things that scare you. Can you also maybe think of things that Rahab was scared of? We're going to stick these fears to our wall. So some fears I was thinking about. I know that our society is really scared of the coronavirus right now. But there are also other things that we can be scared of, right? There's fear of how we look. There might be fear of other people, like maybe there's some mean kids at school. There might be a fear of not being liked or not being good enough for your friends or your family. For Rahab, I kind of thought that maybe she had a fear of death. She was afraid of dying. And maybe that's what led her to the Lord. I think she also had fear for her family. She really wanted her family to live. Now comes the best part. Knock down your wall. Ready, set, go. Yikes! The Israelites sure did make a mess of Jericho, didn't they? What did you notice about your fears? Did you notice that your fears got knocked down just like the wall did? Of course. God can knock down our fears just like he did with the wall of Jericho. If we allow him to, God will comfort us and he will help us when we're afraid. Now, back to Rahab. When the wall of Jericho fell down, the two men ran back to Rahab's house. They helped her and her family to get out of the city safely. Then Rahab and her family lived with God's people. So the Bible does tell us that Rahab was human. She was a sinner. She sinned a lot. And yet God still saved her. He gave her a second chance, especially when she chose to save the spies. She could have stood by. She could have let them be arrested. She could have mocked the Israelites and laughed at them like most of Jericho did when they marched around the wall, but she chose not to. She chose to help the Israelites, and God rewarded her faithfulness, even though she'd made a lot of mistakes in her life, and she probably wasn't very well liked by a lot of other people. Yet God saved her and redeemed her. In a way, she's like Ruth, right? She trusted and she believed in the Lord, even though she'd not grown up knowing him, even though she grew up believing different things. But she heard stories, right? She heard stories of the Israelites and the great works that God did for them. So although she was afraid and she was scared, she chose to believe and trust in the Lord. She saved Joshua's spies and she saved them from death. But she also saved herself from death and destruction. Because when the walls of Jericho went down, the Israelites went in and they destroyed everything and everyone within those walls. So she saved herself and her family from that fate. And the amazing thing is she's also listed in Jesus's lineage. So like Ruth, she's part of his family line, his family tree, his ancestor. So a neat story, right? So question is, what fear are you going to give to God this week and let him take control of in your life? All right, so this week you're going to make an I Spy, bottle craft. So you're going to need a clear bottle, plastic preferably. I did not have plastic, so I will be using a glass jar, but plastic jar or Gatorade bottle, soda bottle with a lid. You're also going to need a red cord to represent the cord that Rahab hung from her house. This can be a pipe cleaner, yarn, ribbon, etc., whatever you have that's red. I also have a little horn here that I printed out to remind me of how God destroyed the city, and they used the horns. I'm also going to use this little block here. It's going to represent a piece of the wall of Jericho that fell down after God destroyed it. And you don't have to do this. You can use a Lego or something like that. I'm also going to put one of my spies in here. And I'm also going to put Rahab in. You're also going to need rice, and I did not have enough rice to put into my jar, so I'm going to use cereal, and that works just as well. And then if the opening of your bottle is small, you may want to use a funnel. So it pretty much goes into a pattern. So you go ahead, pull out some of your cereal here, dump it in. Add my spy in, my Jericho piece. Add a little more cereal. Whoops. As Miss Stephanie makes a mess all over her kitchen counter. Stick the red cord in. A little more. And we'll stick Rahab in. Alright, so you want things to be pretty loose in your jar. You don't want to fill it all the way to the top. So see, if I fill it all the way to the top, I don't really have enough room for my things to move around. Move around and jostle here. So I'm going to take a little bit out, so not too much. There we go. Probably want it to be about that full. Go ahead, put your cap on. There you have it, a nice spy bottle. Give it a little shake. And cool. There's the red cord. What else can we find? Haha! I found one of the spies. Oh, I think I see a piece of Jericho down there. Let's see. Aha! There's the horn. Cool. Alrighty then. So, how many of your items can you find? Can you name what they represent in the story? Can you set a timer? How fast can you find your items? All right, boys and girls, have a great week. Remember to share your fears and your worries with God, with Jesus. Remember, He also wants to hear all of your other things, your hopes, your dreams, your plans, whatever they may be. Share them with the Lord. Trust Him. Be faithful. Have a wonderful week, guys. Bye.